kind of just run and make a part of your lifestyle and do it frequently, do it for a few years maybe, and then eventually you'll be ready for half marathons. And then when half marathons are pretty easy to complete, then you can kind of just do a marathon and not need to do any actual training, or at least that's the way we've done it. Today, we're talking about our current running regimes. So, do we do any actual training? Have you tried training? Is it necessary? What kind of stuff works for us? I'll let Liam go first this time.
Yeah, great. I kind of completely agree with you there. I think there's an important question to ask yourself. Do you want to finish a marathon or do you want to race a marathon? And if you're new to it, I think the goal should be just to finish, in my opinion, unless you're trying to make money, which you probably aren't if you're a new runner listening to this, you're probably not a professional, the next Kipchoge or anything like that. Um, so I think at first your goal should just be to finish. And that's how, as I mentioned last time, my first marathon went. Uh, if you look at just the time, people say, wow, that's horrible. But for me, I had lots of fun, great memory, and I'm still running today, which is, in my opinion, the biggest goal of that. So yeah, I think with that said, of course, training in some form or other can definitely help and make running more comfortable. Because having tried to run half marathons with absolutely zero training to full marathons with minimal training, as opposed to now where I do more of a regular workout routine, I noted a huge difference in my recovery, and I feel much better now and much happier while I run. Things like the wall don't scare me as much. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about what I've tried and what I'm doing with my training. So in the past, I guess before the pandemic, I had a about a year to wait as I was applying for a new university program, and I had lots of free time. So that's when I had the most running volume in my life and the biggest improvements. I actually still haven't caught back up to those, I guess, those times and records I had then. So that was about 2019. And I was at that point running about 100 kilometers a week. And that was the first time I did that. It wasn't really a specific goal, like this day, this much, this day, this much. It was more like, okay, I have to do something that's about 10 kilometers from my house. Let's just run there and run back. And after a couple of weeks, I noticed I had 100 kilometers and I wasn't pushing myself. I wasn't trying to go too fast. I'd take some walk breaks if I needed to, stop, take some pictures, whatever. And the most important thing was I was just feeling good. And yeah, that felt great. But of course, even if I am taking it slow, increasing your running volume, and as it did for me, can sometimes have some, I guess, effects on your body. So while I was doing that and started to increase my mileage a lot, even in recent years, I would sometimes have a bit of maybe ankle pain. I think I mostly had ankle pain, always on my right ankle. And so I think being able to notice things like that, like, oh, it's always the same side, and then think about why, not just, oh, my right ankle hurts, so I shouldn't do anything and wait for 3 months. Okay, now it doesn't hurt, let's run again. Oh, 5 minutes later, it hurts again. Actually, really getting kind of sciencey with it. Think about why does my right ankle always hurt? And depending on who you ask, there's 100 different answers. For me personally, I tried a few online exercise programs, and I guess there's a few I found that were very helpful. But one of them had a focus on knees, and it was just about strengthening your knees. And it started from the grounds up approach. So it started with like foot and ankle exercises, and in doing that, I noticed big gains in my flexibility. But at that point, I was running about a marathon a week, sometimes two. And um, by the time I started that program, and 2 or 3 months into it, I noticed I would have almost zero pain. So before it, as I was running and I would turn a bit, I'd always get like a hip pain after about 35 kilometers. But a few months into this program, it did so much for just strengthening everything from the ground up that I felt great and I was getting some great, well, relatively some fast times, some great times. And yeah, so I think putting the effort into finding a program like that could be if you have weak knees, something to strengthen your knees, weak ankles, something to strengthen your ankles, even upper body exercises I found very helpful. And then I also moved on to skipping, jump rope, whatever you like to call it. That was probably the biggest help in terms of increasing my speed. And I didn't really intend for that at the time. I just found a random YouTube video of there was two jacked twins, and they said, "You want to get jacked like us with no effort? skip for 1 hour every day, 1 minute on, 1 minute rest. And I did no real like studies or anything to prove why that works, but I tried it and it actually was very efficient and effective. So I found out later that does a lot for strengthening your ankles and for increasing your cadence. So if you try jump rope, that could be very beneficial. Of course, everyone's body is different, so find what works for you is my best tip for that. As for my current schedule, to kind of come back to that, the past year I've been a bit lazy in terms of consistent training. Just going to races has been the main running I've been doing. But in the past couple of weeks, I've been able to change my work schedule, and I'm hoping to bring back up the regular mileage, maybe follow a training plan for once in my life, because I don't think I've actually followed a training plan to the end yet. But yeah, that would be nice. And my goal, I guess my first goal was to complete 100 full marathons and still be able to run. And then I was going to worry about, I guess, cutting down the time and trying to do something crazy, maybe one day sub 3 or something like that. Who knows? But I've now completed a bit over 100, so I'm hoping to get to the time next while I'm still kind of young to make it fast before I get too old. But yes, as I mentioned in the last episode, at the end, I said I was practicing joggling. So a very different kind of training, juggling while you run or running while you juggle, depending on what your focus is. And last week I had about 10 meters. So since then I've gotten a bit better. I think I got 30 or 40 meters. And actually last weekend I participated in a race and I didn't juggle the whole time, but I had the balls with me. So at the beginning and at the end I practiced with it. And so even in the, I guess, the tired mental state, I wanted to see, can I still juggle? And it wasn't too bad. It wasn't perfect. So there's still some work to do. My original goal was this weekend to run the Chuncheon Marathon in Korea, 42 kilometers while juggling. Unfortunately, I will not be able to make that goal in time. I probably could if I take like 7 hours because I'm dropping them, picking them up. But I think it'll be kind of anticlimactic. People will be waiting for me and they'll say, "Oh, you're juggling, but you keep dropping the balls." And it's just going to be really awkward. So I decided to wait until I'm a little bit better before making my big juggling debut. So instead, this weekend I'll probably play the flute while running or something like that instead. But yeah, so my current training plan is slowly easing into juggling with my juggling plans. And I know it sounds crazy, um, but I think juggling while running actually has health benefits in terms of making running easier, which I think is a multi-layered statement. What I've noticed once you get better at juggling, as I'm relatively new to juggling, it's only been a few months, I guess the tension in my upper body, especially my shoulders, has to just go away. If I still have tension, it's impossible to keep juggling well. So I noticed once I get rid of that tension and then I start jogging a bit, I have to maintain the no tension in my shoulders. So if you are someone like me who sometimes struggles with upper body tension while you run, something like juggling might be an unexpected benefit, an unexpected help to your running form. Of course, it takes quite some time to coordinate the two. But yeah, that's my current routine.
So let me get this straight. You have to be juggling the whole time that you're running. If you do a full marathon, you're expected to be juggling for the entire way.
So I guess for the official, if I was trying to go for like Guinness World Records, which I'm not, because there are people who do sub 3 marathons while juggling. Um, and yeah, they're crazy. But I guess there, if you drop a ball, that's okay, but you have to go back to where you dropped it, start juggling from there. And so I guess to kind of get around the rules, you could juggle really high and every 3 meters catch one, it falls, and you could technically do that if you're really fast. But yeah, they don't want you to do that. So the goal is to keep juggling as long as possible.
So there are official rules for joggling.
Oh yes, and I guess a goal one day, maybe if I can get good enough to get some sponsors, there's actually a like joggling world championship somewhere in the United States. They host like a track meet for joggling. So they do I don't know if they do like hurdles and things like that as well, but they do have various distances of juggling and running at the same time and actually have records and awards.
And parties, really good parties.
Oh, yeah, everybody can juggle. So everybody's either enjoying it or no one is impressed.
Just party tricks all over the place. Back to your jump rope routine.
Mhm.
I was pretty surprised that you said that was really helpful. I did a little bit of jump rope back when I was doing CrossFit a few years ago, and I found first of all I was really bad at it. I probably can't even do a full minute without tripping over it at least 2 or 3 times. But gradually I got a little bit better at it. I never thought of that as a way to improve running. It was kind of just like, okay, we're doing jump rope and then this and then this. So I just did it because that's what we were doing. But is that something that you would recommend to runners?
Oh, absolutely. I also didn't think of it as a way to improve my running. It was just efficient exercise that I had nothing to do. And yeah, the people who recommended it on YouTube, they were bodybuilders, not runners. So I was
Hmm.
very surprised when I would do an hour of that, so a minute on, minute off, technically 30 minutes of jumping. And then in the evening, I'd go for a run and I could just crush my kilometer PRs and things like that. And I thought, wow, like, but I exercised this morning. How is this possible? And yeah, jump rope was a huge help for that.
Okay, I'll give it another chance.
Yeah.
All right, here's my regime at the moment. So I've been in Beijing now for just over a month, and I'm in my second week of my new job. So it's my first time in an actual consistent routine, whereas the past 2 years I was kind of all over the place. And when I was somewhere where I had a gym locally and I was there for at least a month, then I'd go pretty consistently. But then I'd go somewhere and there wouldn't be a gym, so I'd just run for the month, or I'd be moving like week to week. And yeah, there really wasn't any point in trying to keep up a consistent routine because I had to always be flexible, or at least that's how I chose to be for that time. But now I actually have the option of having a Monday to Friday consistent routine. So that's what I've been doing. And I can actually tell you what I do on each days now. The Mondays, I do upper body, so bench press. And then Tuesdays, a 10 kilometer and change run. And then Wednesdays is squats. Thursday, another run. Friday is deadlift. Saturday, I do a recovery day, so about an hour of deep stretches. All these workouts are about an hour. And then Sunday, I do a long run of about 27 kilometers. So the three runs together are about 50, which I think is a pretty good balance. I did try at one time to do 100 kilometers a week. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do a half marathon 5 days a week. That's 100 kilometers and a bit. And then by the fourth day, my feet started to get sore, obviously from all the running. So I found that if I run every second day, then it's very, very sustainable. Like I can kind of just keep running every second day for like I'll never get tired or sore or anything. If the runs are really long, then maybe. But yeah, within 20 kilometers, I can easily do that every second day. But when I try to do them back to back, then it gets unsustainable pretty quickly. I also find that the lower body, the squat workouts really help. And with just that one workout mixed into the week, it really helps my stamina, especially. So if I do have a marathon coming up, then I'll make sure to do that training each week, especially the week leading up to it, but not the day before because my legs will still be pretty tired. And for some of my slower marathons, part of it was because I hadn't been doing that. So just running alone, I don't think is quite enough, or at least it will be a lot more challenging to actually complete a marathon. And I also joined a few running clubs. So there's a big park in Beijing called Olympic Forest Park, and it's really, really good. If you ever visit Beijing, um, I'll take you there because it's designed for running. There are no wheeled vehicles in there except for those little electric buggies. But there's like a running path, and it's a 5 kilometer loop. And then there's a northern park, which is another 5.5. So it's 10.5, and if you do it twice, it's exactly a half marathon. So they actually have official events in there once in a while with like a finish line and drink stations and stuff just in the park. So it's designed with that in mind. And there's a free running club that you can join there. And there's one that runs Tuesday, Thursday, and then one that runs just Thursday. So I just joined both of them and I was alternating. but it doesn't really fit in with my work schedule because it starts at 7 and I finish work at 6. So by the time I get there, I don't really have time to eat. So it's like a really awkward time. And then by the time we're done stretching and everything, it's like 9 p.m. Um, and then I get home, it's like 10. So it's a lot of back and forth just to get there. And today, for the first time, actually, I went running at work. So I started an hour early so I could run 10 kilometers around this huge complex that I work in. And my boss actually wanted to go run with me because she hadn't run in years. So I went running with my boss, which was awesome because then we can, chat and talk about some stuff outside of work too. So it's a good way to get to know each other a bit better. She did one lap, which was like 2 kilometers, and it was a really nice day. So I did the full 10, and it's a pretty quiet area. It's right on the outskirts of Beijing. And that way it saves all the time of having to go to the park and come back. And I get to run at noon when it's nice out rather than 7 p.m. when it's dark. And the park is pretty well lit, but there are some dark parts. And yeah, it's mostly the back and forth time that really gets in the way. So that's my running regime right now. It's very consistent, very boring, but if I incrementally increase the distances and then I can start doing intervals and that kind of thing. I did one session of intervals with the club, and uh, I think I can only do that with a group. I don't know if I can get myself to do it on my own. I don't know. It would take a lot of effort. But that's one thing I liked about the clubs was I just show up and then whatever we're doing, I just do it. We're doing hills today. Okay, I'll just do hills. I don't need to think. I just go with the group. So I'm at a point now where I'm transitioning. I've been running for 4 years now. So I'm transitioning from just totally doing it out of my enjoyment for it, and it being something like, oh, I get to go for a run now, right? Like it's something that I look forward to making it something that's very consistent, but maybe it will help me progress more just by being able to accept that boringness of it and just keep it up and stay consistent. So we'll see how that goes. Mm. Fortunately, at this point, I like running enough that even if I do it in a boring way, then I'll still enjoy it. And it's a really good complement to my work, right? Because I'm just sitting at a desk looking at a computer screen for 8 hours a day. And running is kind of the opposite of that, which is one of the many things that I love about running. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for listening.